Welcome to Smart Curriculum Academy. Chris Jones here, Chief Executive of CJ Learning Technologies. I'd like to welcome you to our second in the series of leadership webinars, and we welcome this morning Claire Probert, Executive Head of the Challenger Multi-Academy Trust, the primary sector of the Challenger Multi-Academy Trust, and Head Teacher of Lancot Challenger Academy. We're going to look at, or our theme for today, Creative Curriculum Leadership, Designing Curriculum to Meet the Needs of Pupils. And we welcome Claire, who's an enthusiast, I think that's, Claire, that's a right way to put it, for creative curriculum and its impact on students. But really, what we're going to do this morning is to explore why you've got to where you have with designing curriculum that meets children's needs, and where you are in Dunstable, in Bedfordshire, is an area that has been challenging, and it's proved successful to you. So would you like to take us into this? So the first thing you're going to do, excuse me, welcome to those just joining us. Claire is just going to start talking about the journey that you've got. So how did you get to where you are now?
It all started with, I'd say, quite an unfortunate Ofsted. But an Ofsted that needed to happen. I might just share my screen. Is that all right as I go through?
Yeah, it is absolutely fine. I'll stop sharing mine, and then there you go. While Claire's just sharing a screen, if you've got the chat open, if you've got any questions as Claire goes through, please just drop them in the chat. Nikki, my assistant from CJ Learning, will just record those, and then we'll feed those in as we go through. So if you've got questions for Claire as you go through, please just drop them in the chat. Over to you, Claire.
Okay, thanks, Chris. I suppose really, so my background has always been in curriculum design, because I do believe that curriculum is at the heart of absolutely every aspect of school improvements. And at Lancot, the school I'm at now, when I joined, it did have quite a few challenges that needed addressing, and the catalyst was an Ofsted inspection in 2014, where the school was placed into serious weakness. So just a few of the things really that we had to work with. It had previously been a good school in terms of Ofsted, so the community was very much shocked by the kind of rapid downfall, and actually it was a huge effort to then get the community to trust us again and to actually work together and move forwards. Excuse me. Underperformance of the majority of staff, not all of the staff, some of them are still with us and absolutely brilliant and valued, but it was a serious situation which led to the underperformance of all of our pupils in terms of their academic success, but actually in terms of preparing them for life. That preparation just wasn't there, and therefore the engagement of the pupils wasn't there. I think a quote, if I'm allowed to say it, that's always stuck with us, the Ofsted inspector did say, at this school, the children learn in spite of the teaching, which is pretty damning if you think about it. So we knew we had a long way to go, and the curriculum had been very static. So there were schemes of work, but they weren't placed for a particular reason or a particular purpose. They were just simply compliant, and no more than that really. So I became head teacher probably about 15, 16 months after that Ofsted inspection. And to me, that was a real crisis point, and the journey was very challenging, but I took that as pure opportunity, because I think actually with so much that needed changing, we could strip absolutely everything away, and we use curriculum as the driving force to tackle every single one of these problems. Now, I know times are changing. I think it would be important to say there are schools where I understand, because of the pressures, they will focus on their core subjects first, because obviously then getting the results in that area can lead to less pressure, and then move on to the foundation subjects and all the other aspects of school improvement. I don't agree with that at all. Each to their own, but I very much think you need to set your school up, you need to drive it forward to show the pupils, to show the community, to show your staff what you value and the vision and the type of school it's going to be. And for me, I wanted a school that met the pupils' needs in terms of a personalised curriculum, a curriculum that made them excited to learn, that they would get real life experiences from. And through their significantly increased engagement, naturally, their reading, their writing, their math skills flourished as a result. The engagement came quite naturally through the parents, because once we'd got the children on board, the parents followed, because all they really want is their children to be happy and learning. So we used a model of creative curriculum design to kind of tackle all of these issues. I think I'll just put out there as a little disclaimer, I would say, sorry, so I can move my slide. I would say that the creative curriculum can have a bit of a mixed reputation, in that I think sometimes it can be interpreted as the foundation subjects and the arts, and that's not it at all. It's not creative as in a little bit of fun or something that the children will enjoy. It's actually so strategic and needs to be so carefully planned, just like anything else you would do in a school. So I'm going to wish me luck.
While you're changing the slide over there, I mean, that's quite a significant point for you, isn't it? That creative curriculum is not a bolt-on that was added to the curriculum in addition to all the other things. Your philosophy is that it is the core of everything. It's the basis on which the delivery works. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. When we looked at how to create this, can you see the document in front of me now?
Yes, we can see, yeah.
I really wanted our community and the staff, many of whom we were working with to develop along this journey, I wanted them to understand the core principles within that. So we took these key areas, which, as you can see here, to what extent are your pupils really invested in their writing? Next key question, how much ownership do your pupils actually have over their learning? To what extent does your curriculum truly develop your pupils' character? Do you involve your local community throughout your theme, or simply share the outcome with them afterwards? And do your pupils have first-hand experience of financial education? So all of these key questions actually tackled our core subjects, our foundation subjects, our community involvement, pupil engagement. Our pupils had been such passive learners that had been wrongly interpreted as engaged, which, as we all know, couldn't be further from the truth. So we took the vehicle of, we had a theme that spans across the whole school. So for a term, whatever that theme is, all of the learning journeys from nursery up until year 6 are based upon the same theme with the same end outcome. So the learning journeys can be quite different from one year group to the next, but it culminates in the same celebration of their learning for every single pupil. And we do it on a large scale. It's a very public event, a very public celebration. And it's very much created because of our school improvement priorities. So one of the first significant ones we did, if I use the example of Lancot wood, can we see that?
We're still on the screen that you shared before, Claire. Not sure what you can see on your screen. Are you sharing a PowerPoint?
Yeah, if I do stop share and then share this screen here, fingers crossed. There we go.
There we are, that's better.
Okay, so here are the key questions that I talked about, because I thought if I put it in a published document, actually people can see that this isn't just a fun event to engage pupils, it comes from the heart of our school improvement journey. And one of the first ones that we decided to embark upon, we called it Lancot wood. Now, at that point on the journey, our reputation was shot to pieces, really, and we needed something to bring the community back together. And I thought the only way, as I mentioned, to get our community on board was to get our children thinking about what they were proud of about their school and what they wanted to improve and what they were celebrating. So we decided to make a promotional movie of Lancot. Every year group knew that what they were working towards was producing content for this DVD, which was, I think, just over an hour in total. And we hired out the local theatre. We sold tickets to all of the parents for an evening premiere, a red carpet event. And then we screened the movie that they had made. Now, that looked very different from one year group to the next. So, for example, some of them had done some of the script work and interviewing their teachers and each other. Some of them had done dance performances or based around promoting the school and what they loved about the school. There was art murals that had been created outside and then sped up and put to music. They'd done a puppet show of the history of Lancot. So it actually brought in their art, their DT, their music, their performance, their geography, their history. And through all of that came the core subjects as well. And I think that was the turning point where, for the teachers, they could see the difference in the engagement of the pupils, because it wasn't just the same lessons they'd had year on year. It was something fresh and something that they had ownership over, and something that actually they could have an influence over the learning journey and the outcome for that movie. And that night was such a special evening in that we sold out all of the tickets at the theatre, and the pride on their faces, and actually the pride on the parents' faces, really showed that I think a change was happening, we felt at that point. And I think actually for the staff, I'd always had this vision in my head. I knew what it could look like, but they needed to experience it themselves as well, to see actually the power of doing an event on this scale and the experiences that the pupils. Now, the pupils were involved in all aspects of it. They did the marketing for it. They met with graphic designers, film producers, movie makers, and then depending on what their learning journey was in each year group, they would meet with inspirational people, whether it was a professional artist or a dance coach or a historian about the local area. So it was really kind of bringing the outside world in to give them those kind of career awareness opportunities as well. Now, that's where, which I'll touch upon later, a little bit of money making came in alongside that. So obviously we made a huge amount on the ticket sales, and then we sold the DVD and we made quite a few £1,000s. So we put that back into every class. We set up bank accounts for them, and then they started to oversee the money to think, planning for the next theme. What did they need to buy? What did they want to do through enterprise to actually sell something maybe at the next event, knowing that if they made a loss, it came out of their bank account, but any profit went directly back to them. And that was the start of quite a significant journey through enterprise. But that was just the very, very first moment when we thought, this is the pupils' money. They've earned this. We're going to give it back to them and actually teach them real life skills in that sense as well.
And that speaks, Claire, to your that whole integrated approach, that it's not enterprises bolted on or creative curriculum is bolted on the end. It's part of everything they do, and that, so your focus there is on purpose rather than just curriculum in itself. You're growing the community involvement. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. There is no part of our curriculum that is standalone or separate. It is very much a case of it incorporates our character education. It incorporates all of the integrated foundation subjects with our core subjects. It incorporates our enterprise curriculum. So even in the afternoon, our sessions aren't, here's your history, here's your geography. It's just one long learning journey throughout the term. And we do make it clear to the pupils of the skills that they are learning, so they know whether they're being scientists or historians, but actually everything fits together and flows quite nicely towards the end outcome.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's fair to say, in terms of what we've done in working with you, it's been about a journey of training the staff, engaging the staff in their medium and long-term planning, so that they're integrating this mindset in everything they do, isn't it? It's not just a nicety that's bolted onto the side. I've repeated that several times, but we can't underestimate that impact on the school.
Absolutely.
Right, carry on.
I mean, I could dip into the planning part quickly now, just to give an overview.
Yes, it'd be worth touching on that, because it's key to delivery, isn't it?
Let me just whiz through to get to the planning slide. I'll just give you a bit of a sneak peek into some of the bits that we're going to mention. So what we do is myself, my curriculum team, my senior leadership team, we will think very much about the current needs of the pupils based on what's going on at Lancot, what's going on in our local community, what's going on in the wider world. And we will pull together 3 key WOWs, vehicles, for the next academic year. We share those in July, so we've recently done that this year. We had them planned, but we have completely gone back to the drawing board because of everything that's happened recently in the world, and chosen 3 that we feel are much more relevant now. We share that with the whole staff team, and then we spend a day together as a staff team, or we would do if we were in school, talking through our expectations. We give them inspiration, and then they'll sit in their year groups, and throughout that day, they will create their long-term plan. So they take the national curriculum objectives, and we use a skill-based curriculum to really make sure there's clear progression throughout every single subject. And they place those into the 3 themes so that they can see how it's going to fit together for that year. And we do that every year. Everything's fresh. We don't repeat anything at all. Very much ban that completely. And then we move on to the medium-term planning. So the staff are currently working on a medium-term plan for the autumn term, and we have planning meetings with them. So my creative leader and myself have met with all of the year groups over the past week. We'll take their ideas, we'll answer their questions, we'll work with them. It's a collaborative process. And I think it's important to say that you don't need to run a curriculum like this. You don't need a staff team made up of the most creative thinkers and the most innovative out there people. Not everyone is like that, and that doesn't make them a poorer teacher at all. You need a really diverse mix in your staff team, but you need to have a number of people that you've identified as kind of being the trailblazers in that area to put the support in for teachers that might just want that little bit of extra support, or just to talk things through. We had, I think it's fair to say, we had a meeting this week with a team where both of them are relatively new, and they came to it quite apprehensive and had played it relatively safe, but actually talking it through with them, they generated their own ideas and talked themselves into some really pretty special ideas. But it's just being there, it's that collaboration, it's that idea sharing, it's just making sure it really is a whole school, whole team approach. Then we come on to the short-term planning, which is done as we do at Lancot. Everyone does it their own way, but we don't really rely on looking at their short-term planning. Because it's such a high profile, our curriculum, we see the learning journeys, we hear it in the pupil when we talk to them, their excitement, we see the quality of the work in their books. And actually, with the end WOW being so public, we see the quality of the product or the performance or the outcome on that day. There's no hiding from it. And that's one of the reasons in the early days we chose to do it as a whole school. In previous schools, I've done it where every year group does their own WOWs, which work just as well. But right at the start of this at Lancot, there weren't so many year groups that I could use as a strong example. And sometimes you would need that to show the others what your expectation is. So I thought if we do it as a whole school, everyone will very much see what each other is doing. And there is the element of competition that starts to build, because everyone thinks, oh, that year group's done that. That's actually very high expectations. Or, wow, look at all the effort they've all gone to. I need to up my game. And that was the journey we were on at that point. Now, we go to these meetings and I've got all my ideas and get so excited, and they blow me away with their ideas because they've taken it on and they embrace it. But that has been a journey of a few years to get to that point.
Claire, so that the Lancot wood was the first one. How long ago was that? We're talking a couple of years ago, 3 years ago.
Probably over 3 years ago now. Yeah, yeah.
So it's been a journey of about 3 to 3.5 years of this work going on in the school. You've seen some staff turnover. You've actually seen some stability in the staff, so that they're getting into that competition that you've just referred to. We can do better, and we can do better than someone else, or that's just the natural human trait of wanting to do it. Do you want to take us into some of the examples of what you've done with students?
I would love to. I'll just bring this quick slide up to show you that if we look at our cohort of year sixers leaving us shortly, these are just a few of the things they've done over the past few years while we have had the creative curriculum in place. And I don't say this lightly, as in when I say a tour guide, they haven't been on a trip and seen someone as a tour guide. we select people to come in and actually train them up in each of these areas. So they've been trained to be a museum curator for one of our WOWs that was set in the future. They have actually been yoga instructors. They've performed in flash mobs, been chocolatiers, artists, event planners, charity founders who were involved in that WOW, and they actually set up their own charity and ran it, and we're giving funding to make these things actually happen. So we do really aspire to give them access to not just the obvious career choices, but things that they perhaps aren't even aware of. So over their 8 years with us, if they start in nursery, actually you would be looking at close to, I think we worked it out as over 95 different experiences that they will get during their time with us. And if I pop back,
that's a phenomenal range, isn't it, for a group of young learners? That's a phenomenal range of things that they get to experience, and it's wide and varied. Go on, take us into this.
Okay, so this is another one of my favourites, although I think they're all my favourite, really. This came at a point when we transitioned into a primary school that didn't have classroom space for all of the classes. So we had to lose our library to turn it into a classroom, which just shows that actually, this is what I mean by you can use any crisis or any challenge to turn it into a benefit, to actually help your children understand that you need to problem solve and you need to move forward together as a team and think how to do that. So we decided, okay, we don't have a library. We were looking at Ofsted maybe in the next year, and that seemed like a bit of a barrier, but we wanted children to still love reading and to have ownership over that. So we decided to set up our own website, which is lancotlibrary.co.uk. And every child in the school, through the learning journey that each year group chose, had to produce a digital book. Some of them did it on a computer, some of them did it with their beautiful handwriting. Some of them did their images through sketching, some did photography, some went to the local college and did artwork with different backdrops, but they had to put all of the work into producing these books. So we had, I think our year fours did their own version of Little Miss and Mr. Men based on our attribute curriculum. Year two, they taught for writing and adapted some traditional tales. We had science non-fiction books in year one. Year 5 and 6 did suspense. Some of those turned into slight horror. We had to adapt that, but it's a learning journey. And then what we did is we published every single child's book. We went back to the theatre. We enlisted the help of, we begged, basically, beg anyone, and they probably will help you if you stalk them enough. We begged George Pearson. He came and we did a book reading for all of our parents, so they could again buy tickets. We sold out the theatre. We did a morning and afternoon one, so we sold it out twice pretty much. And the children went up on the stage, and they had their books in the background on a huge theatre screen. And as they would flick through, the children would read extracts from their book. And again, you could see the pride. Bearing in mind we did that all the way from year one upwards, our children are now so used to going on very public stage environments, and this is the norm to them now. So whether it's performance, dance, public speaking, whatever it is, the quality that we have seen since the early days when, you know, they'd be looking at the floor, they were nervous, they didn't have the confidence to speak. And now, I mean, you've been to some of our WOWs in the past couple of years, all of our children, some of them, of course, they get nervous, and we don't, that's life, and we have to say to them, we get nervous too, and we support them, but the transformation has been phenomenal. And to the point where actually last year maybe, at another event, we actually put on a staff dance, a staff performance, because I thought, we're constantly saying to our children, come on, you can do this, be brave, come up on stage, and they do. But we've never done it ourselves. So we did a dance to The Greatest Showman, which the children absolutely loved. And I think deep down, we probably quite enjoyed it. But I really do believe that as teachers, you've got to live and embrace what you're asking the children to do. And backstage, there were so many teachers like, oh, I'm so scared, oh, this is horrible, I didn't realise it felt like this. And it changed their perception of what we were asking the children to do. So just little life lessons throughout. But yes, so then they showcased all of their books. We sold all of their books so they could pre-order, and we had them printed quite cheaply. And again, any money made went back into that class's bank account. At this point, we'd set up proper bank accounts through credit union. So the children had to go to the bank every week to pay their money in, or decide as a class, okay, we're going to need that much money to get our books printed. And they have to go each week to the bank that's held on site and choose to withdraw their money. And then that goes to the teacher who has to sign for it. And they start to actually understand how a bank works. And actually it's their bank account as a class. If they want to take £30 out and have a pizza party, we let them do that. Or we're encouraging our staff to be that hands off, because the children need to understand that once that money's gone, that money's gone. And if they need something for the next wow, they either need to borrow from another class, or it's real life skills. And quite a few of our bank accounts now in the different year groups have at different points had over £300 or £400 in them. I think the highest we ever had, I want to say one was about 600. None of them are quite that high at the minute because they've been doing some spending. But it's their bank accounts, it's their choice. So that's another life skill. So again, that was a hugely successful wow. And it really helped them understand they are now all a published author. The local Dunstable Library, Central Bedfordshire Library, bought a copy of every single child's book. So now every book is in our local library. So the fact that they've learnt foundation subject skills, core subject skills, that's our character education, that's our enterprise, that's performance, that's event organisation. Every wow just brings all of it together into quite a significant event that hopefully will stay with those children forever.
These are inspirational experiences, and I know. I mean, you say I was involved in the charity one, and it was quite awe-inspiring to hear the year threes stand on the stage and say, you know, this is what we've done. Now, what are you going to do? For the confidence that came out of those young learners, with an understanding of what they were trying to achieve and what needed to be done to achieve it. So it's really having an impact on the learners. But take us a bit further into the sort of the detail of the wider breadth of what you're doing, Claire. Can I just say while we're there, if you've got any questions, please just drop them in the chat and we will cover them in a short while. But Claire, just take us a bit further in.
Okay, with another example, or
yes, yeah, go on. You've got. I know you've got lots of examples.
I've got too many examples. I'll try and talk a bit quicker. So this, shockingly, is one of my favourites. This was based on inclusion and diversity. This was when The Greatest Showman came out, which really grasped our children, as I think it probably did many nationwide. And to be honest, the ones I'm using do tend to be theatre examples. We only tend to do one each year at the theatre, but it actually is a good moneymaker and a great life experience for them, and it's really developed a strong link with the theatre. So every year group had to do 2 performance pieces. Again, their learning journey was completely of their choosing, depending on what needed covering in the national curriculum and in our skills curriculum. So all they knew was that we would hire the theatre and they would do their performance pieces. At this point, by now, our parents and community were so on board that we have to share our WOW event dates so far in advance because they all book time off work. And it's without question, the theatre will sell out. So people book, you know, they're asking us now, what are the dates? We need to know, we can't miss this. So for This Is Me, if I give you a few examples, Year 5 looked at Martin Luther King and speech and the power of persuasion, and they did their own kind of spoken word speeches all about the world that they wanted in Dunstable and the future for Lancot. And they did a photography unit, so they were standing there addressing the audience, and they adapted their photos, and they had the slideshow going around in the background, and they did their speeches live on stage, and they were absolutely beautiful. They gave me a real shiver. Year 2 looked at traditional tales, and they rewrote traditional tales, thinking about inclusion and diversity. And actually, if you go on our library, every year, or every 2 years, every year group has to reproduce another set of books. So we're constantly adding to our library. We have absolutely hundreds on there now. And as part of this theme, Year 2 looked at Cinderella, 3 Billy Goats Gruff, so many different stories. And the ones that they produced and created themselves included, I think we had One-Legged Cinderella, Blind Cinderella, Homeless Hansel and Gretel. There was a great one about the gingerbread man. It might have been the shortbread man. But the creativity that these children put into it, the writing that they produced, the illustrations they produced, and they did that through their science as well, was absolutely beautiful. Year 3 did a lot of work on religious studies and interpretive dance. Year 4 did spoken word and rap poetry, or looking at inclusion and diversity in different cultures. And again, we got different people in to work with our children just to support that learning. And it just came together in such a truly special event. It was really kind of spine-tingling, and we had a lot of parents. A few actually wrote in and said, you know what, in the early days of this, we'd think, oh, Lancot are asking for money again. They want us to buy a theatre ticket. They want us to buy a child's book. They said, but we sat through that and we cried, not just for our children, but for all of the children and the opportunities that they get. And I do keep a lot of those letters and comments and Facebook posts, because as a head teacher, not every day is a great day. And you need those moments to think, this is why we're doing it. This makes it all worthwhile. And to see the children's faces after they've done their performances, they're buzzing, and they're still, if you go into Lancot now, and I know you do, when you speak to our children, they can't wait to share what they did at This Is Me. They still talk about Love Lancot, and it's amazing which different themes have grabbed different people, but This Is Me is definitely one that a lot of our children are still talking about, even a couple of years later.
That's really quite a challenging thing for most schools to deal with, and great to hear. Claire, I just, this is a wonderful experience for the learners. This is wonderful for the teachers to be so invested in it. Do you find a challenge in covering the core delivery, so particularly science and maths, when you've got all these experiences and they're doing such wonderful things? How do you get to cover what people are, and most teachers will be saying, well, I've got so much content to cover, I need to make sure I've done all of the science requirements, and I'm continually developing maths. What's your response? I mean, it's so positive that no one's going to question that. Sorry.
I would say that this approach doesn't change the coverage that's needed at all. In fact, in many ways, you can cover different things simultaneously. So it probably makes the coverage a little bit easier, because you're not moving from one subject to the other, but you can pull certain things together. You can bring the reading and the writing into every foundation subject in a much more purposeful way. So actually, without those strict barriers of this is English, this is maths, this is history, it just helped things flow. And we still have, every morning, they still have their English and their maths. But the English, wherever possible, is very much linked to this theme. We don't say it has to be. We're not there for tenuous links. But actually, our staff now are aware that we will pull them up if there are missed opportunities, because the children are so engaged in these wows that why wouldn't you have it linked to what they're so excited about? So in terms of the coverage, I don't see that as a problem. I don't see it as a barrier. It's tight, because this is the real world, and education, to get everything covered is a challenge, absolutely. But this approach actually almost helps streamline it and bring it together. And we do, I would like to think so. You'd have to ask my staff, but I know quite a few would agree. We have a very open door policy at Lancot. So if staff aren't sure about something or don't think they've got time to fit something in, they will always come back to us and let us know. And we make adaptations wherever we can. So Lancot Library, for example, we started saying every year group is now going to do a book, and we'll keep moving it forward. Choose one of your themes and incorporate a digital book into that theme. And we came up with the normal issues. Well, we don't have enough technology in our school. We're not made of money. We can't all do it at once. And actually, we need a bit more time to do this and that. So we changed that to every other year. So it's simple adjustments, but through open communication with the teachers, who are the people in the classroom delivering it, we try to do the best that we can without lowering our expectations.
Yeah.
And it has worked.
Sorry, Claire, there was some questions coming through, but I just wanted to say that. I mean, you're not you're not a rich school with lots of IT, yet the children are so competent with what they have and quite adaptable with lots of different types of equipment and resources and software. You've invested small amounts in that development, haven't you? But it's not one of these schools that's oozing with lots of IT kit, is it?
We don't ooze anything. I would say that actually, like many schools, finances are tight, very, very tight. But through this curriculum, actually, it's a little bit manipulative. But when the children are generating that much money at each WOW and it goes back into their class bank accounts, yes, they can choose what they spend it on, but a lot of that money goes on the resources for making their products for the next WOW, which is their national curriculum coverage. So rather than needing subject budgets to buy these things for science or art or DT, they end up buying their fabric or their paint or different things that they want through their class budgets. Not because we've led them to do that, but because they see it as, wow, we're making this product, we want to get that, that and that. And we say, right, well, we've got that in school, but if you want these, you buy that. So actually it does help the budget, not as much as we would like, but there is, I suppose that's just my belief, there's always a solution. Yeah. It's not always obvious, but we started at such a low point, and to me the only way was up. It was almost a blessing to take on a school when it's category 4. If it's going to get worse, then you've done something really wrong, haven't you? So we took risks and weren't afraid to take risks, and we still like to believe we are a risk-taking school, but they won't all pay off, and that's fine because you learn along the way. But you've got to take the risks to find out, and we want our children to be risk takers. We want our children to learn the same skills that we're learning. So yes, there will always be things you could say, that's a barrier, I can't do that, or how do I do that? Well, talk to someone, ask for help, find out. The number of things that people would think, how have you got that person involved? Or who did you know to get them involved? Or how did you afford that? It shocked me, and I do stalk a lot of people, but it shocked me how many people are willing to get involved. They just haven't been asked because people assume that they won't help. And we've had so many organisations and charities and businesses to different degrees that are now, I wouldn't say partners, but we know we can rely on them and call them in. Some of them are paid services, but a lot actually, if you twist their arm and you build that good relationship, they want to help. It looks good for them as well to be working with a primary school. It's PR at the end of the day. I just got
questions come in from Dolvanet. I hope I've pronounced that right. She says, how do you go about getting professionals to support this? I mean, you've really just touched on that, but can you give? Sorry, I've got a sound coming in there. Just give us a feel for what that's like.
Sure. I suppose, yeah, as I've mentioned, we did invest a little bit. So the photographs on the screen are actually brochures, and they show the learning journey of the pupils, and we sell those as well to make money. So if I invite someone in for a meeting because I want to work with them, I will have all of these brochures in front of me, and I'll say, right, we're a high profile school. We can do something to support you as much as you can. We'll put you in our brochure. We'll do it as an advert. We're quite active on Twitter, on social media. So that's not always everyone's driving force, but the lower level companies and businesses that can still offer more than you might think, actually for them, that's quite an attractive, there's an appeal to that. But I genuinely think it's just persistence. I will perhaps send an email, invite someone in, follow it up, have a phone call, just try and build a relationship to make it worth their while. And I think I could probably say this, we recently started working with Primary Futures. If you're not familiar with that, I would definitely investigate that. They've got tens or hundreds of thousands of volunteers. And actually, you only need to get in to a sector of the community to start meeting other people. It's all about networking. So I do prioritise networking. I make sure that I go to different events to meet people, to share what we do. And and to invite people to the school, go to their school. So it's not all about coming to Lancot. I learned so much from going to other people's schools, but it's that constant investing in other people and encouraging other people to invest in you, which I know sounds simple. People might be thinking it can't be that easy, but that is genuinely all we've done.
Yeah, I mean, you've capitalised on all of the things that you've talked about there, but you've kind of not just left it as, well, I'll make a phone call and have a conversation and it might go somewhere, but you really do build a relationship. You're
Talk people.
but it's evident in what you've just shown us, and what experiences the children are getting is because you are persistent, and there's a persistence that comes from them. I know when I saw the link with the Peter Jones Foundation and the work we did in that project, the children were relentless, in terms of selling their products, in engaging with some high-profile people, Peter Jones himself and his team. The children have kind of picked up from that tenacity and that desire to, well, we're valued people and we can do something, and what they did was stunning, wasn't it?
We've created monsters, basically. That's what we've done.
Yes. Can I come to some other questions? So someone asked, apart from theatre tickets, what else do you sell? So in terms of, you've talked a lot about engaging students in that, the financial curriculum and that the financial element of the enterprise. So they've got their bank accounts. So, but give us some examples of the sort of things that they're actually being sold. So you've said brochures and tickets, but a bit further.
We said everything. Nothing goes home for free. So I suppose everything that you think of that the children make through their art, their DT, their computing, we take that learning and we turn it into a product. So for example, we did London calling, and we turned our school into kind of different tube stations, and everyone had a different focus. So year one had done some beautiful artwork based around London scenes and settings. So then they bulk bought cheap notepads, but they'd put the artwork on the front of a notepad, and then at the event they sell beautiful handmade books. So it's taking the outcome through the foundation and the core subjects and turning it into a product. We've had literally hundreds. So when we did a theme in the autumn term, Mind's Your Business, all about mental health and well-being. So for example, year 4, through their science, that every year group had to come up with their own workshops. And then we had a week that we published it online, like a gym timetable, that parents could book and come and take part in these workshops, but with a strong enterprise link. So year 4 did workshops based on their scientific learning on how to create bath bombs that they then marketed. So they sold their bath bombs in the lovely packaging. Year 1 did a healthy pizza workshop. So they sold the pizzas that they made during the pizza workshops. Another year group did yoga. So they were the yoga instructors, but they made bags for yoga mats to go in through their textile and their sewing. So it's just when you do your long-term planning, you're thinking, okay, that's the outcome. I'm going to put those skills in there because that will cover the skills in a really relevant way, but I'll end up with this product. So how can I turn that into something that's completely marketable? So we don't do anything extra. We simply look at the skills that need covering throughout the national curriculum and turn it into things that can be sold.
And they're stunning things. That they really are wonderful things. There's some other questions, Claire, if you're okay to answer. So what's Jawadir is asking, can you share a lesson that stood out to you in terms of delivery structure and differentiation? Can you just describe, in terms of, to pick on a particular year group, the kind of short-term planning, what does it look like in terms of bringing that core content, well, over to you. You know how to answer that. So how does it look, what does it look like?
I mean, I think that would be the case for every lesson that we do. So if I think about something we've already talked about, if we think about a product, such as maybe let's say the yoga mats, or the textile bags for different themes. So you deliver it in exactly the same way. You would model the skills to the pupils. You would do the planning process. So we're really big. Whereas the national curriculum often says, this is for Key Stage 1, this is for Key Stage 2. Sometimes it comes up in Key Stage 1 and Key Stage 2. Our skills-based curriculum takes each area, say for art, or say for textiles within that, each area comes into years 1 and 2, then into year 3 and 4, then into year 5 and 6. So through the milestones that we follow, every aspect of art and DT and every subject is covered 3 times. And the reason we do that is because a huge part of the learning is about learning from their mistakes, evaluating what they've done and revisiting it at a higher level. Whereas I think, to be completely blunt, maybe a little bit harsh, you might stumble across a school where they know they've got to cover that skill, so they do that activity once in the 6 years, and they say, right, textiles is done, or painting is done. When it's not, it's about going back and deepening that learning and actually seeing the progress from what they've done in year 2 to year 4 to year 6. So within that lesson, they'd be looking at the plans for their product, because it's also very easy, I think, when I started at Lancot, to walk into a classroom, as a teacher once invited me in the early days and said, look at what they've produced in DT. And they were beautiful, but all 30 of them from every pupil were exactly the same. And I just remember my heart sinking and thinking, they've not planned this, they've not created this, they've copied what they've been told to do. So walking into a lesson at Lancot, you would have the discussion where you can see, right, we know we've got to create something. What do you want yours to look like? And then look at the skills. Try out the different techniques, whether it is collage, whether it is photography, whatever it is painting. So then they spend some time practicing the skills. And then they think, right, how do I want to bring those skills into the product that I'm going to design? So you would differentiate by looking at the milestones. So if you're in year 2 and you're looking at milestone 1, if you've got someone incredibly gifted in that area, as a teacher, you can look to the next milestone and think, right, that's what they're going to come on to. So it gives you a sense of, okay, that's what I'm working towards. I can make it a little bit more complex by doing this. Because I did a test, which sounds a bit mean, probably a couple of years ago. And in a staff meeting, I said, okay, sketching. What does sketching look like to you in year 1 compared to year 3? And how do you expect that to progress by the time they get to year 6? And actually, I think it's true that in primary education, we don't always have a huge amount of specialism in every area. Okay, we have to be good at everything. So at that point, because they hadn't been given the right CPD, they wouldn't be able to say. So sketching to them would be sketching, painting would be painting, or colour mixing. They wouldn't know where it was leading to and how to progress it. But now, because we spend so much time looking at the progression of skills, in that lesson, you will see the skill that is being delivered and focused on, but actually you will see the differentiation within it. And that would be hard to give specific examples right now because it applies to everything. So in your textiles, the types of stitching that is used, for example, you might have some that never get beyond the basic running stitch, but will be perfecting that when they go back to it. And you might get others doing more complex things, which then leads up to their seam allowances. So you stick within your milestones, but there's still scope within that to see progression over each phase of learning.
So your understanding of, I mean, what we call differentiation actually is you're exploring how a child goes deeper and deeper into any one of those skills, and you take every opportunity to explore it and revisit it and come back to it when it's appropriate. And actually, not just when it's appropriate, but you do plan for it, don't you? You build that in. They've only done this bit, so we need to go a bit further in. Like you just said, in textiles, they all need that experience a little bit further.
And if you look at the books online on the website, or if you were ever at a wow and look at our products, there is a real difference. And I won't say in quality, that's not fair. I'd say in outcome. But we know our children, and we know that that is the best that they have been able to produce, and they've worked so hard on it, and they are so proud of it. And it's not about everyone's being the same. It's about knowing their starting points and knowing that they've made progress throughout that learning journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Claire, we're off about 10 minutes left. Is there anything else of your but I know you prepared lots of material, and is there anything else that you wanted to show us? Just, I'm conscious of the questions that are being asked, but also for you to cover all that you'd
I knew I'd
put together.
talk. Is the screen still on this?
Yes, we've still got the whales.
I suppose key principles, is that what you can see on the screen now?
Yes, that's right. Yep.
I'd probably reference most of this, but I would just say if you were thinking about adapting any element of this, and I'm a firm believer that this isn't an off-the-shelf approach. I wouldn't say to anyone listening today or any day, yeah, do what we're doing. I'd say listen to what we're doing, and if you've got certain things in your school that you know you need to tackle, look at which strands of this might be useful. You don't have to do everything we've done. You'll have amazing things at your school, but hopefully, just like I learn from other people, there might be something here that you think, oh, that's a gap. We could look at that approach. But I would very much advise people engage the whole staff team. It's not just about the teachers, it's about every single person in that building, because ours is such on a significant scale, it just wouldn't be fair, it wouldn't be inclusive that people didn't know what was going on or weren't involved in it. So we include all of our support staff with that, admin, everyone knows what we're doing. I'd say prepare for the fact that if you're making a significant change, and you'll all know this without a doubt, not everyone's going to be on board. Not everyone's going to embrace it. But if you truly believe in it and you really think this is the answer, it's just about being resilient. Be absolutely resolute. And in those darker days, as I call them, I used to go home and I get quite upset some evenings, and I think people can't see it. They can't see what I'm trying to achieve. They don't get what I want for our children. And that took time for them to actually see it themselves. So because we were making a whole school change, I've learned through my learning journey that people can't read my mind. People can't think, oh, I know what she's getting at. They trust me now, I like to think, and they'll go along with it. But in the early days, there may well be a lot of resistance, a lot of uncertainty. But if you're trying to bring something new in at a significant scale in your school, then I would just say, go with it. Absolutely go with it. As we've mentioned quite a lot, it's not a bolt-on. It should be fully embedded in all aspects of your school. So it comes into our community engagement, our CPD programs, our displays around the school, our personal development, literally every single thing. And purpose. We don't do anything if it doesn't have a purpose, and it has to be real. So like when we talked about the charities, I've known schools that will say to the children, we're going to set up a charity, and they'll give them a project to learn from, but actually they haven't set up a charity. So we actually, everyone in our groups had a different role. They learned about all the different roles within a charity. They were given funding to make their project happen, and we linked them up with a real charity depending on what they were working towards. So our year 2 did poo power. So it was toilet twinning, and they were actually given money to make that happen. Quakeaway in year 5 worked with the Nepal Earthquake Foundation to actually do relief packs. You can't hook children in. They'll see through it. You've got to give them real opportunities. So I just say, don't pretend, don't offer a hook and say we're entering a competition or there's a big prize. If there isn't, actually make that happen, make it real, because the children deserve that, and it just changes everything.
I mean, that is probably the overarching and the biggest characteristic of what you do, Claire, is it's real, isn't it? It's I love that expression at the top of your slide there. Creativity is not chaos. I've certainly seen many schools that have gone into this kind of creative stuff, and it does become chaotic, or at least the outcomes are not of quality. It's chaotic in its delivery, and so it's not controlled. But you're not looking for control. What you've just described is alignment of staff, and I know you've invested a lot in getting the staff to talk the language and live the life of creativity. And it has been, as you say, there, a courageous journey, hasn't it? It's not an easy one, and there are days you go home and cry because it's not quite, it doesn't feel like it should, but it's a wonderful set of points there. But that's the reality of it, that it's not just about take a book off the shelf and deliver the curriculum. You're thinking all the time about how can we capitalize on what's going on around us, what's in the school, what resources we've got, what are the needs of the children.
Yeah. And have I got 1 minute just to mention something?
Yeah, go on. Yes, yeah.
Well, there's enterprise. As I say, we've set up their own bank account with credit union, and we've now published our own enterprise curriculum just to show the progression from year group to year group, which incorporates their character, their core subjects, their foundation. But that wasn't what I was going to say. Here we go. So we have very recently rewritten our curriculum design for next year, and our 3 themes are based purely on the needs that we know our pupils will have. So I won't go into it in too much detail because there won't be time, but we've got Generation Rebuild, Game Changers, and the Lancot Fringe. So Generation Rebuild, it's actually getting them to focus on actually what the future could be like. People keep talking about the new normal, but I think actually it's not about getting back to normal. It's about learning from the experiences our children have been through. And rather than thinking, okay, we'll cover that in a PSHE lesson or we'll have a circle time, we want our entire curriculum to open up discussion so they can process what they've been through and actually pull out the positives. And we've got some year groups are looking at what would happen if the world becomes a purely virtual world, and they're going to create a virtual world and look at the pros and cons of that. We've got others looking at consumer society and sustainable living for if there was another pandemic. So they're very real issues that will come together, and they'll culminate in, we're going to keep it virtual, so we don't have people in our school in the autumn term, but it will be, they'll make a presentation or a video, so it'll be very much promotional for the world that they are creating and the changes that they want to see. So it will just help them process their experiences in a positive light and actually impact on the future as they would like to see it. I'm probably not going to have time to go through all of them, am I? If I go to the Lancot Fringe, so we're looking at the concept of the Fringe Festival. So we're going to hopefully by the summer, if we can all integrate again, have a large-scale festival on our field where they will do their performances. It might be a fashion show, it might be spoken word. They're putting it all together now, but we've got some that are looking at doing their science and their electronics to do the kind of lighting designs and the installations. Some will be doing their photography, but looking at actually kind of the generation gaps in different communities and different cultures. And this stems very much from partly the Black Lives Matter movement, but actually I think a lot of people in schools, hold our hands up, often look at different cultures by looking at contrasting localities and looking at different countries, whereas we want to bring the focus back to looking at all of the different cultures in the UK and in our immediate community and actually have a celebration of that. So it's another one kind of based on inclusion and diversity, but with a different take on it, really.
Claire, as always, inspirational range of things, and the children are going to have such a rich year and a fun year ahead of them, aren't they? And in terms of what they've been through, it's important that there's that perspective of looking forward and coming out of this journey. Can I just say thank you so much for sharing what I know is a passion for you and drives your desire for the school that you're responsible for and the schools that you're now engaged with. Can I just ask you that so we can share a screen to conclude? Can I just say thank you to our the group of people with us. Excuse me, I'll just, you can see the screen. The Smart Curriculum Academy is aiming to bring conversation from practitioners and experts. We've got a number of things lined up for the term ahead. In September, we begin with Debbie Dowsett, who's looking at safeguarding as we return to school. But again, all of these people have ideas of looking at things differently and a kind of creative way of approaching an approach, rather than simply saying, well, this is the way it's always been done. Here are experts, let's just do what we always do. All of the people that behind these themes that we're going to be looking at over the next year have come up with creative ideas, creative approaches, have got thoughts about let's not just do what we've always done. Let's look at, as Claire's been sharing with us this morning, come back to the purpose and the values behind it, and let's look at some ways of going ahead. So Smart Curriculum, see what's there. Again, thank you to Claire this morning. So pleased that she could share with us. And have a great summer, everybody. And we will send out all the details, and hopefully we can get the video to do what it needs to do. You'll hear from us. Thank you very much for being here. We'll see you all again soon. Thank you.